Welcome to the She Wins podcast. I'm your host, Heather Sumlin, and it is 2025. And I thought that since I don't have a guest today, what I probably could do is give you a little bit of recap on my 2024. And I remember thinking and actually saying out loud a couple of times that 2024 was a dumpster fire. And I don't actually mean that, because the more that I look back on the year, there were a lot of things that I learned. There were a lot of lessons that I received from guests that I had on my show, but then also in my personal life that helped me to probably be more prepared for 2025. And so I thought maybe what I would do is share a little bit of that wisdom that other people shared with me or things that I learned along the way. So I'm going to break it into maybe two categories. One is going to be what I learned or my most valuable moments from the podcast and from my work, clients, and things like that. And then maybe talk a little bit about, on the personal side, some lessons that I learned along the way in 2024 that are going to make 2025 better. And one of the things I decided to do for 2025, and I didn't do it in 2024, which makes me think maybe that was the reason that it was dumpster fire moments. I didn't pick a word of the year. Not like I have that much control over what happens in life, but my response I can control, and I didn't pick a word of the year last year. I did the year before. The year before I picked active, and I don't know that I actually implemented a lot of activity, but I did new and different things, and that was my goal. And I accomplished that in 2023. So 2024, I didn't do a word of the year, so now I did. And my word of the year for 2025 is intentional. So my goal is to be intentional, not just with my time and with my money, but with who I spend my time with, what I do with my day, how I utilize the time that I've been given and gifted by God in order to improve the lives of others. Like, that's what I really, really want to do. So I want to be more intentional with my time, with my family, with my faith, with my finances. So that's what my goal is for 2025. So one of the things I want to do every single day is to keep track, which I'm starting today because I haven't started yet. So today is the day. Because, my pastor told me that it was Quitter's Day was Friday, the second Friday of the month in January is Quitter's Day, National Quitter's Day. Everybody quits their New Year's resolutions by the second Friday of the year. And therefore, I decided I wasn't going to start my resolution or any type of goals until after that. So therefore, I would not be a quitter. Okay. So instead, I've decided to start this kind of thing that I'm going to do every single day. I'm going to record. I'm going to journal a little bit more consistently. I tell my clients to journal, so I'm going to be more consistent in the way that I journal. But one of the things that I want to write down is something that I did today that's going to help make tomorrow better, because that would be intentional. And I had a client this year, couldn't even tell you who it was. I wouldn't anyway if I remembered who it was. But somebody told me that their father asked them every single day, what did you do today that makes tomorrow better? And I thought that's a really good question. And maybe that's a question I need to ask myself, and a question that I need to ponder and then write down. And so I'm going to do that for 2025. Something else that I learned last year, I interviewed Jan Mitchell a few weeks ago. She is the executive director of the Miss Texas organization. Her girls did really well at Miss Texas. I've been a sponsor of Miss Texas for the past, 18 years now. And Miss Texas placed first runner-up at Miss America. Whoop, whoop. Miss Texas Teen placed fourth runner-up at Miss America's Teen. They did just phenomenal. And I think anytime you make the top 5, you celebrate big, because the judges have a ballot, and so they just rank you at that point. So you don't know where your points would have landed you had they not had the ballot. So as far as I'm concerned, everybody that places in the 5 is deserving of being there. I also worked with Miss Mississippi's teen. She was second runner-up, and that was the highest scoring Mississippi's teen in the history of the pageant at Miss America's Teen. So that's kind of cool. But anyway, going back to Jan, she was talking about an aha moment in her life. And she said she was sitting at a table, and you'll have to go back and watch it so that you get the actual quote. But she was sitting at a table, and she remembers everybody was praying. And she remembers thinking to herself, I need to remember this moment. And everybody at that table, she took like a snapshot in her mind of every single person at that table. And then just planted that into her memory and said that she knew that that would be important because not all of those people would still be at her table forever. And so just kind of remembering that the people that are in your life now matter to you now, but they might not always be there. And so remember them at their best is what I took away from one of the things that she said. The other thing that we talked about that I really liked is the fact that it's not just the participants in the competition, because obviously we're talking pageantry, but it's not just the participants in the competition that gain from the experience. The volunteers also transform. And that's one of my favorite things about being involved in pageantry. For those of you who don't understand it, don't know it, are confused by it, think it's crazy, let me tell you, every person who is involved in pageantry has an opportunity to grow and become their best self if they pay attention and utilize the mentorship that's available to them, whether they are a director, a volunteer, a sponsor, a participant, a princess, doesn't matter. And so we talked about that and how transformational even a competition like a pageant can be to everyone involved. And I thought that that was pretty cool. I interviewed Hope Harvard was kind of cool. I interviewed her first interview I did. So I started my podcast I think we started recording in October, November of 2023. And then the first episode was published on December 1st of 2023. And that was Hope Harvard. She owns a company called Hope Beauty, where all of her beauty products are named after a woman from the Bible. And she talked about how that happened. She had like this aha moment and kind of like a premonition that, hey, this would be great, and then decided to roll with it. But what I like about her is that she actually worked in the White House for a while as an intern. And she's the type that she's just going to go and do whatever she wants to do. She's going to go for it 100%. And she said, you know, the answer is no if you don't ask, right? And so she knew that the president and some other people were going to go on Air Force One, and they were going to go to the Clemson game, and they were in the championship. And she'd gone to Clemson, and she had been a rally cat at Clemson, and she wanted to go to the game really bad. And how cool would it be to go on Air Force One? And so she went down and she advocated for herself, and she got herself a spot on the plane and was able to go, which most people would probably be like, wow, I wouldn't be able to do that. That wouldn't happen for me. And she's like, you can't be afraid to ask, because if you're afraid of the ask, then you'll never get an answer. And so that was one of my biggest takeaways from her, is that you don't limit yourself. Just go for it anyway. Another question I'm asked often is like, who's your favorite person? And so that's why I'm thinking in my head, like, who was my favorite person that I interviewed? Y'all, I don't have one. Like, the way that I run my company, the way I run my business, is the person in front of me is my favorite person, always, because I'm going to work with a lot of girls who compete with each other in competition, never against each other, y'all. Y'all aren't competitors, just FYI. You are in the same competition, you're not competitors, you're friends. You can be friends, it's okay. But I think that each and every one of them, they're my favorite people. As I'm talking to them, that's my favorite person. The next person comes in, that's my favorite person. The next person comes in, that's my favorite person. So I don't play favorites, which makes it really hard to pick a favorite interview that I did last year. But I'll find one, not a favorite. One person that I enjoy interviewing, and I'm probably going to have her back, is Kelly Sabraki. So she's a naval officer, influencer, and she posted to, I guess it's common knowledge because she has a lot more followers than I do, and she posted this publicly, so I'll just tell you. She's had a really hard year. She competed for Miss Illinois USA, didn't do as well as she had hoped, and she had been first runner-up to Miss California USA back before she aged out. And then the organization decided to open up the opportunity to any woman, any age, any circumstance. So even though she was married and over what used to be the age bracket, and she's in her 30s, she was able to participate. And it didn't go quite as well as she had hoped that it would. And she's dealt with quite a bit of, trouble online and disappointment. And what I love about her is her whole message is do both. Like, you can be a naval officer and you can be a pageant girl. You can be a naval officer and an influencer. You don't have to choose one over the other. You can pursue all of your passions. Maybe not all at the same time, but you can pursue all of your passions. And I enjoy following her because she always finds a way to bring it back to the people that she cares about. And that's her following. That's her people who are actually following her Instagram. She cares about them a lot of times more than she cares about herself. And I just find that fascinating. And so I'll probably have her back. I can't think of exactly what she said during that particular episode, but she's had me on her podcast 3 or 4 different times. And so it's been really fun to be on her podcast. If you don't follow, it's called Misunderstood. And I helped her name that podcast. So we tell that story in our conversation, which is kind of fun. I think one of my favorite things that I did this year was just revisiting, like, it's probably not the right way to phrase it. Reconnecting. That's the word. Reconnecting with past clients and friends that I haven't really talked to in a really long time. Like Lauren Visa-Rich. Lauren Visa was Miss Louisiana USA several years ago. Hadn't talked to her since she gave up her title. And we got to reconnect. And those types of things were really fun for me. So that was good, Doing the podcast was good. Kind of therapeutic, actually. The most recent one that we posted was Haley Bryanhurst. And I met Haley when she was 11, I think she said. At the time, she had a really bad speech impediment. Like, when she says she talked like Elmer Fudd, she talked like Elmer Fudd. And she tells the story, and I'd kind of forgotten that this happened until she started talking. And then I was reminded, I mean, it's been a minute. She's now, she's going to 2 different universities, has 3 different majors. She's a senior, about to graduate. Incredibly successful human. But when I met her, she was 11 and she was a little bit lost. And she told the story about how she was being bullied at school. And I remember it now. She just struggled with answering questions. She struggled with believing in herself. And it was because she was being bullied at school, but she hadn't told anybody, not even her mom. And so she talks a little bit about it on the episode. And it was one of the things that's been interesting throughout my life. I didn't plan to be a coach. It wasn't something I thought I'd do. And so it surprises me still, like every time this happens. It happens often. And I'll be working with someone or talking to someone. Sometimes I'm not even a client. I'm just talking to somebody. And next thing you know, they're like, I don't know why I'm telling you this. Like, I don't know why I'm opening up. I don't know why I feel like I should tell you this. And so, but I'm honored that people would feel comfortable enough to tell me she's being bullied severely at school. It's something she needed to tell somebody, and the fact that she'd feel comfortable enough to tell me, it's kind of cool. And it's those moments, I think, that's why I do what I do, is to give back to other people and help them. I loved, actually, one of my favorites. Everyone's my favorite, so I'm going to do like 46 of these favorites here in a second. But Berkeley Bryant, Miss Volunteer America. The reason I loved her interview wasn't because she is the national title holder and I worked with her and she won this national competition, but it was because she was so vulnerable and so open and so willing to share about her mother's cancer journey. And it had been a couple of years, I think, since her diagnosis, and I remember her telling me about it when we were at Miss America. Not last year, but the year before, I believe it was. And just not knowing if she should talk about it, and didn't wanted to honor her mom's privacy, which was really important to her. So she didn't change her platform. She stuck with the platform that she already had and won the national competition without mentioning that her mom had cancer. And I think oftentimes we feel like we have to share this heartwarming, gut-wrenching story in order to win in pageantry. At the end of the day, you share what you feel comfortable sharing and no more. And so, but she was very, very open. You'll have to go back and watch because it's really telling when someone feels comfortable enough to share what's been going on, even if it's super, super hard, especially if it's super, super hard. And you never know how what you're sharing is going to help somebody else. And so that was really cool. I think one of the most impactful interviews that I did last year was Mallory Fuller Pendergast. So Mallory was Miss Texas 2021, but we didn't talk much about her being Miss Texas. We talked a lot about her losing her husband to brain cancer and that whole journey. So she told the story from diagnosis to his passing and then some. And her motto is joy through it all. Her focus is on finding the joy in the midst of struggle, in the midst of grief, in the midst of immense sorrow. They got married in November. I guess they got married twice. They got married in September in a private, small wedding ceremony, and then they got married again in November, which was a much larger event because he was so sick in September that he wasn't going to be able to handle a large ceremony. But he passed away in May, I believe it was. And so if you can imagine what that would be like and what that would feel like. But if you talk to Mallory, she's like, but there was joy throughout the journey and that he was so adamant that people just know Jesus and that he was going to use like his life and the ending of his life to really save people for eternity, which is so incredibly cool. And just that composure and that willingness to use their struggle. I don't even know. I mean, I could go on and on and on. Every single one of these, I have a list right here. That's why I'm looking down, just FYI. Every single one of these people has impacted me in some way. Only about 4 of them that I interviewed last year were people that I didn't know already. Almost everybody that I interviewed were people that I knew, that I had personal ties with. Most are past clients. And some of them are my all-time, I'm just going to say they're my favorite people, but I just told you everybody is, so there we go. Yeah, it's just really cool. It's really cool. And then for 2025, I have some people I haven't reached out to yet that I'm going to reach out to, and they're going to say yes, and they're going to come on. It's going to be great. I mean, we're just going to believe it's going to happen. One of my favorite, see, I just found more people. Paula Miles was super cool. Paula Miles is, she was the executive director, producer for RPM Productions, and I believe they're still calling it RPM Productions. I'm not really sure, but they're starting a brand new pageant system because they decided to step away from the Miss USA competition, and they're starting their own, and they just launched that the other day, and I didn't know that was going to happen when I interviewed her, so now I'm going to have her back and find out what the heck, what are we doing? That's so cool. I think it's called Miss All American, something like that. I'll put a link in the description somewhere. But that was really exciting because she just has a wealth of knowledge, and she's been an executive director for state competitions for 4 decades. Score. And then the other one that just hit me is Kristen Dalton Wolf, which was one of Paula's contestants or title holders back in the day. So Kristen was Miss USA in 2009. I believe, 2009. And she has a really strong ministry where she talks to women and helps them to be able to kind of live their purpose and live their life according to how Jesus would want them to, which was really cool. But I met her at a leadership camp when she was Miss North Carolina and helped her a little bit before Miss USA. And what was weird about that conversation for me is I never know the impact that I make until people tell me. And so she talked about some of the ways in which I had helped her without even realizing it. And that's always fun, and that's always impactful to me. So yeah, the podcast was kind of therapeutic. And so I think I'll still do it. I think I'll keep doing it. It was a lot of fun. And we'll see who I have coming up, but I guess I could tell you why it was therapeutic. I said I was going to break this into 2 sections, right? I said I was going to talk about how the things that I've learned from the podcast, which really I just talked about the people that I like. And then I was going to talk about things from my personal life that I've learned. And there's been a lot of really good days that I've had I turned 50 in 2024. That was fun. Highly recommend it. Everyone should turn 50 at least once. But don't laugh at me. shortly after, like, there's been a lot of really good days in my life. You know, the day I got married, the day I had both of my children, probably the day I decided to start my business. You know, there's been some really good days. But one of the most, probably, I don't want to say best days, but like a day when I finally felt a little bit of peace that I hadn't felt all year. I might not be able to do this because I might cry, and that's not good. I mean, it's fine. People cry. You can cry if you want to cry. I just don't think I should cry like on camera. It was, probably like, I think it was November 1st, October 30th. I don't know, somewhere around there. And it was when our daughter Ashley finally said she would get help. What people didn't know is the whole time that I'm, trying to run a business and do a podcast and promote how you can win in life and really sharing women and their struggles and their hardships, but then also the triumphant moments that they have. During that whole time on the side, behind, away from the camera and away from my clients and my personal life, our daughter had been struggling with anorexia, and I can only talk about it because she opened up about it, and she posted publicly the day that she admitted herself into treatment. She posted about it on her public platform, and so therefore I know that she wouldn't mind if I share a little bit. And if you want to hear her story, you can just follow her, Ashley M. Sumlin, on Instagram. She shares her journey, and she's sharing her treatment experiences on there too. And she's motivated to help people catch it before she did, and hopefully be able to tackle it, because I didn't realize this because I'm not on TikTok. Like, I have a TikTok. There's people that follow me on there. I don't know why. I've never posted a thing. I'm never going to, or I don't think I will. I don't know. Maybe I should have a TikTok. Somebody tell me I need it. Although maybe it'll be banned. Who knows? But she said that on TikTok especially, and probably even on Instagram, that eating disorders are being romanticized, and that people are celebrating or encouraging restrictive eating. And not to say that that's what led to her issues. I'll let her tell her story in her way. But at the end of the day, that's not something that we want to encourage people to do. You want to nourish your body so that it can do what it needs to do for you to get where you need to go. And so Ashley was in inpatient treatment for 5 weeks. She is now continuing in treatment. There's multiple levels of treatment. And it's one of those things where you never really know whether it's going to go super well. So she could wind up back in residential treatment. We're hoping not, but you never know. But at the end of the day, I learned a lot this past year. And one of the things I think I learned through the journey is not everything that you think needs to be shared. I didn't necessarily learn this because of her experience. It's kind of a whole separate situation, but sometimes, are you ever around people where they just word vomit and they tell you whatever they're thinking without any real thought? They don't follow that. Ever heard that think thing? Is it thoughtful? Is it helpful? Or is it honest? Is it important? Is it necessary? Is it kind? Like, think before you speak. I think it's important that we think before that we speak. And sometimes people will say things without a lot of thought, and they don't really think about how that's going to impact the person who's listening or the person who's trying to receive what they're trying to say. And my dad, in the book With Winning in Mind and in our teaching, he talks about the principle of the picture. It's not important what you say, but it's what you cause someone else or yourself to picture that's critical, because we're moved towards the picture. The picture is what we're going to receive. Oftentimes, I think people don't think about that, and they just kind of say whatever's on their mind without ever understanding how it's going to be received or if it's going to be able to be received. And that's something that, not that I learned it last year, but I think it's something that became very evident to me, that I want to make sure that I'm intentional in the way in which I communicate. I also learned something. I think for the first 6 months of the year, I was terrified. Because she'd been struggling with this for a while and was refusing treatment. And I was terrified. And while I was praying, it wasn't like I was praying intentionally. It was like I was scared. And therefore I wasn't really surrendering. And I was trying too hard to fix the problem. Because, Sumlin Solutions, I got to solve it. And instead, I needed to love her through it. And my husband and I met with someone who completely transformed the way that we thought about what was going on in our lives and in our home. And we changed our approach. And I think the lesson in that is, when you have someone who's struggling in a major way and it's not something you can fix, and it's not something that you can actually, you don't have the ability to solve that problem, you have to meet them where they are and love them through it. Don't judge them for it. I think people believe that you have to not be perfect. I think everyone knows perfection is not necessarily the goal, and it's progress over perfection. But I think that people believe that it has to be, you have to step forward every single day towards wherever you're going. And if you take 2 steps forward and 3 steps back, you failed. And you didn't fail. You extended your timeline, but you didn't fail. When you fail, it's because you give up and you stop trying. That's when you fail. And I had a moment when I was viewing last year through a very, not negative lens, but just kind of like a glass half full lens. Half full. That's not right. Half empty lens. And I had to change my perspective. And then I realized you never have a bad day, so you never have a bad year. You never had a bad day. You have bad moments. You don't have a bad day. And there's no wrong side of the bed, and whoever decided to talk about that is kind of crazy. There's a right side and a left side. Y'all figured out. There's no wrong side. You don't wake up in a bad mood. You decide to be in a bad mood before you get out of bed. That's what I believe to be true. But I did my best to not let an entire day be wasted. But this year I want to be really intentional with how I start and end every single day. That's my goal. Because that's what I deserve. And that's what my clients deserve. It's what my husband deserves. What my daughter and my son deserve. It's what God deserves from me. Is that I'm intentional every single day. So, y'all be intentional. It doesn't have to be your word of the year, but I highly recommend that you do something. Start your day with purpose. End your day with praise. Thank you so much. Have a blessed rest of your day.